all are here present to attend webinar on topic HVAC design and its component. I welcome our respected director sir and HOD sir. Our speaker for today is Mr. Moinul Haq. He is project manager at Cooling Merchant Air Conditioning System and Solution, and also project engineer and trainer in HVAC field. He is BTech in Mechanical Engineering from Integral University. He has 4+ year experience in HVAC field. His skills include project execution, site supervision, material management, cost estimation, design and drafting, service and maintenance. He successfully commissioned 540 HP of LG Make VRF system at Artificial Limb Center of Dr. Shakuntala Mishra National Rehabilitation University, including all testing and final handling over. He also successfully designed and executed 120 HP of VRF system at ALSTOM Transport Office at Lucknow Metro Depot and has multiple successful projects to his name. Now, Mr. Moinul Haq sir, over to you.
Hello everyone. I just want to make sure सबको आवाज आ रही है.
Yes, sir.
Just can everyone please confirm you can hear me.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes,
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
You are very much audible.
Right.
Sir.
Please start.
Am I? ठीक है. Very good. All right. Hello everyone. My name is Moinul Haq, and thank you for that introduction. First of all, I would like to thank the entire Department of Mechanical Engineering at the Babu Narsidas Institute of Technology for giving me this opportunity to present and interact with the students who are willing to embrace this beautiful field that is HVAC. And first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. As I have been in this industry for around 4 or 5 years now. I have executed numerous projects ranging from chilled water systems to, all HVAC projects. We'll go further into that detail. And I just like to start off the conversation with, all right. So I'll just share my screen to you and then we'll start the presentation. I hope everyone can hear and see me. And just confirm when I share my screen, just confirm that you can see the screen so that there's no confusion in the future, right? Just do it. All right. Just confirm it to me that you can see the screen. Can everyone see the screen?
It's visible.
Yes, sir. It is written.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Then let's start off. One more thing. Are you comfortable with only English plus Hindi, or only Hindi?
Sir, only English.
Only English. Very good. I just want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying, right? Okay. So today I'll be talking about the topic that you have been given, that is HVAC, that is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. We'll go more about it in further slides. And moreover, I will be touching upon the concept of opportunities and scope in the field, because after graduating from your respective colleges and departments, you will be exposed to the real world scenarios, and those scenarios are, I think, a little bit different from what you see right now. So I'll just touch upon those topics as well, and I'll just tell you how some of the ways which you can utilize to make yourself upgraded, make yourself more ready and prepared for the future projects, right? So let me introduce myself once more. I have been an alumni of Integral University, Lucknow. I have done my mechanical engineering from Integral University, and then right after that, I was hired by Johnson Controls Hitachi Air Conditioning India Limited as a technical sales engineer. And at that time, my journey started back in 2017, and I worked there mostly on projects in chillers and VRV systems. And after that, I have been currently I have been working with Cooling Merchants in Lucknow. That is a private air conditioning contractor. I have been working with them for the last 4 years now, and I have been working at the position of project engineer in MEP. And also, I have been a member of the ISHRE, that is the Indian Society of Heating, Refrigeration and Air Conditioning. It is a Indian a national society which mostly deals with the advancement and research and development in the field of HVAC or MEP. And I have been its member for the last 2 years now. And I have also been the chair of training in the ISHRE Lucknow subchapter. We provide training to the students and training modules for upcoming industry professionals, which are trained by the professionals in both online and offline. And also, I have been a trainer with the JM MEP Academy. That is, it's also a private training facility in Lucknow. We have been training more than 250 students for the last 3 years since when it's formed, and we have helped them get placed in various reputed institutions all around the globe. So I have been working in this field. Some of our prominent clients, which we have been blessed to be part of, are, you may know some of these names or all of them. That is Charak Hospital and Research Center. We have installed more than 400 HP, that is around 300 TR of air conditioning in that building. Moreover, we have been awarded the tender for Reserve Bank of India for the installation of package units in their cell. Next, we have been given the contract for installation of VRV or VRF systems. What are VRV, VRF systems? We'll touch upon those in coming slides. So we have been given the contract for Nirvan Hospital. Also, we have done some work in Lucknow Metro Rail Corporation. We have done work in UPSRTC. We have air conditioning the entire building of UPSRTC, that is the Uttar Pradesh State Road Transport Corporation. Also, we have done some projects in the grand upcoming, or rather recently completed mall, which is Phoenix Palacio at Shahid Path. We have done some air conditioning over there. We have installed AHUs and chilled water systems on around 10 to 12 shops in the Phoenix Palacio Mall. So these are some of our projects, some of our prominent clients, which we have been serving the last 15, 10, 30 years. So we'll start off the presentation with defining what are building services. So first of all, any building which is constructed, it is not just brick and concrete. It has a lot more than it seems on the outside. There are basically three components of building services, which are namely mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So we'll go into further details. Sorry?
No,
Is there any problem?
Nothing.
Okay.
No, sir. Continue. Thank you.
So the building services consist of mostly broadly three things, that is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And these three things constitute the entire buildings. We have numerous subdivisions under that. Under mechanical, we have a little subdivisions. We have under electrical, we have some divisions, and plumbing we have some divisions. But moreover, these three things combine together to form building services. So what are these things? First of all, we understand what MEP is. MEP stands for Mechanical, Electrical and Plumbing, and it is an important part of our project required to create a safe and comfortable living environment inside a building. So imagine you have a building and you only have a brick and concrete building of around 15-20 floors, but in order to live inside it, in order to comfortably place humans inside the building, we need a lot more services, a lot more utilities in order to provide comfortable environment, comfortable water, comfortable services to the tenants or to the residents. So these utilities, these services are provided under the MEP structure. So MEP, imagine yourself in a fabulous building in the world. Now take away the lighting, cooling, ventilation, plumbing, and security and safety system. Then what you will be left? You will be left with a hot, cold, dark, uninhabited shell. So without MEP, the building cannot function properly. So in order to provide a functional building, the building which provides a safe and comfortable environment for the humans, we need to perform the MEP services inside the building. So what are the services? So first of all, we have the mechanical services. And under mechanical services, we have three further classifications. First of all, being the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. We'll be talking majorly about HVAC. Then we have refrigeration. If you have an industrial building or a factory, you need refrigeration to cool down the projects, if you have a pharmaceutical factory, if you have food and beverage industry, you need refrigeration equipments to perform the building functionality, right? And then we have firefighting and fire protection. Firefighting and fire protection is mostly concerned with the safety of the building in case of fire, in case of any natural calamity. The firefighting and fire protection systems, they perform their tasks in order to help, give that precious around 15-20 minutes, half an hour time for the residents to get out of the building before they are put to harm. So these three things majorly constitute the mechanical services. Then we have electrical services. And under electrical services, we have a lot of things, but majorly three things that we talk about. Those are electrical HT and LT panel distribution boards, and building automation and monitoring system, and earthing. So what comes under electrical panel? Because any building is incomplete without electricity and power. In order to function anything, that is, if you say a firefighting system, if you say HVAC system, if you say lighting system, if you say PA, that is announcement system, anything which runs, it cannot run without electricity, without power. So the responsibility of providing power and providing electricity to the building comes under the electrical services. Next, we have building automation and monitoring system. So building automation is a fairly new concept. It has not been incorporated in natural practice in Lucknow as of now, but a lot of small scale projects have been initiated in Lucknow. That is, now we talk about smart homes. In that is what happens is the house, it auto functions itself. It functions on its own. It is an autonomous house. Some things, for example, include automatic shades. When the sun rises up, the sensors sense the lighting and they open the shades and close the shades as and when required, based on lighting conditions outside. So those things come under building automation system, and ultimately they need power to function properly. Then we have the monitoring system. You very well know the CCTV systems which are being installed in almost every building. Those are parts of the security as well as safety concept. Then building monitoring system will also include smoke detectors, beam detectors, CCTV cameras, automated doors, and things like that. So these also need power. They also need electricity. So they ultimately come under electrical services. Then we have earthing. Earthing is is very important concept. Residential earthing is not very prevalent these days, but in commercial buildings we use earthing, or we provide earthing on a very strict basis, because earthing is basically, sorry, earthing is basically a safety system for the building in case of lightning or in case of any electrical failure. All the excess electricity which is constructed, or all the power surge which has incorporated, it goes under the ground and it does not damage the building or its residents. Just tell me if I'm going too fast or you need me to slow down a little bit if that's the case.
साहब थोड़ा धीरे.
You want me to slow down?
जी जी.
Am I going to? Yeah, okay. Right. So I'll go a little bit slow. Let's move on. We have the plumbing services. So the plumbing services are also a part of the MEP mechanical services, because you cannot function a building living inside it. You need water for drinking, for other purposes, for cooking food and etc. So you need clean and fresh, clean water and odor-free or smell-free water inside the building. And you also need to flush out the domestic and sewage water, and so that the building can function properly. So the plumbing services also come under MEP system, and plumbings are basically a different department than mechanical. So we do not mostly deal with the, as a mechanical engineer, you won't be dealing with plumbing services on an early stage, but as and when you advance towards MEP services, then you will have to deal with the plumbing issues and plumbing operations as well. So what we have under plumbing services, we have domestic flushing and sewage water treatment. Water treatment is very important because a lot of places are there where water is not very up to the mark, not odor free, smell free. There are some impurities in the water that are present in, based on, depending on the location and geographical differences. So you need to treat the water if required. If the water needs to be treated, you need to treat that. Next, we have the piping and sanitary fixtures. We also need the complex piping network in the entire building for providing water to all the parts of the building for recreational and also important feature functions. So the plumbing services is also it's mostly a different field from the mechanical services, but it is in fact an important feature. So our topic basically is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So what is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning? It is mostly comprised of 3 or 4 main components. Firstly, we have heating. We provide heating to the places where mostly, if you see for India, we do not need heating on a large scale. We only need heating for around 15 to 20 days on an average, on a yearly basis. But in the European countries, in US and Canada and other countries, heating is a very important part. So heating is also a very important service. We use mostly gas furnaces and gas heaters for heating. Also, we use heat pumps, which we'll touch upon in the next slides. Then we have ventilation. So ventilation is also very important. We have been exposed to the concept of ventilation since we were very small. Our parents used to say, when the electricity used to when there was used to power cuts, when we used to open our windows and doors to in order to sleep, because we need ventilation. So what ventilation is, we will learn ventilation in the next coming slides. And then we have air conditioning. So air conditioning is also a very important part. It's one of the most important parts in any system, because if you do not have air conditioning, especially nowadays when the temperature goes up to around 48 to 49, 47, 48 degrees in Lucknow, then you need air conditioning in order to provide comfortable and peaceful environment in a space, because the temperature or the climatic conditions directly are corresponding to the human nature. If you change the conditions, then the nature will also change. First of all, if you talk about heating, the process of increasing the temperature of an enclosed space for human comfort, as I said, we do not use heating more often in Indian cities, but we mostly use them in European countries. And gas furnaces, heat pumps, and boilers are used. There are systems, there are components which produce heating in India as well. We have VRFs and VRV systems, which are heat pumps, which also provide heating and cooling. We'll learn more about it in the next slides. But the concept of heating in India is fairly new. And, not a lot of people use heating in as a mechanical means. They only use heating in terms of electrical elements such as gas heaters or such things like that. But in air conditioning, mostly heating is not used as yet because temperatures do not go very low in mostly in the Indian parts. So heating is not
Sir,
a
we
very
can't see your slides.
okay. Let me just. Please confirm if you can see the slides.
It is
No, sir.
visible, sir. You can start, sir.
It's visible, right?
It is
Yes, sir.
All right. Moving on. Moving on, we have ventilation. So as I said, ventilation is also required in large buildings in order to make it odor free. So what we do is what is the process of ventilation? The process of ventilation is the simultaneous process of addition of fresh air and removal of stale air. So there are two processes and they happen simultaneously. First is we add the fresh air meaning the outside air which has adequate amount of carbon dioxide and oxygen combined. We introduce that into the space, and also at the same time we remove the stale air or the polluted air from the room to the outside. Because what happens is if you close the if you sit in the room and you close the windows and doors, after some time you will feel a little bit suffocated because the amount of carbon dioxide in the room is increasing, because there is no way out for the carbon dioxide to expand to the atmosphere, right? So we need to ventilate the building in order to make it make a cycle pattern for the air. As you can see in my left slide, where it is written car parking ventilation, what we have done is we have provided two set of fans. One are over here, if you can see my cursor, where it is written exhaust air, and one are over here where it is written supply air. So whenever next time whenever you go inside the mall, parking basement parking, you will see some aluminium or GI ducting going above your head. Those are for ventilation purpose. What happens is we because ventilation is why ventilation is required in car parking. One of the reasons are when the vehicles which are parked, they emit a lot of amount of carbon dioxide in the basement, which is very harmful for the human beings. So we need to remove the carbon dioxide. Number one. Number two, we need to remove some amount of heating, amount of heat which is produced from the engines, and we need to exhaust it outside from outside of the parking, as well as at the same time we need to provide fresh air inside the car parking in order to make us a sweep pattern. If you can see, here that there is a sweep pattern. The exhaust air is at one end and supply air is at the other end. So there's a clean sweep pattern which is blowing the air from here to here. So we are providing continuous fresh air inside, and we are also exhausting the stale air outside. Same happens if you see if you talk about kitchen ventilation. There is a lot of smoke. There's a lot of grease particles. There's lot of smell inside the smoke inside the kitchen. So we need to extract it out from the kitchen, and as well as at the same time we need to provide fresh air to the kitchen. So if you can see here, this is called the hood. This is called a chimney or the hood. it sucks the air or the grease particles, and it exhausts and it exits them out of the building. And then we have this arrangement, which is the fresh air, which is circulated inside the building through a ceiling register or a duct or a diffuser. So there is also a sweep pattern. The air comes in from here and it goes out from here. So it takes away all the odor and all the smoke from the kitchen. Similarly, what happens in toilet ventilation or bathroom ventilation, as you can say, we need to extract out the smell or the odor which is emitted in the washrooms, in the toilets, from the to the outside, as well as we need to bring some fresh air into the inside, so that the atmosphere or the environment does not become suffocating. So these are the three major concepts of ventilation. We use ventilation in car parkings, and we use ventilation in kitchens as well as in bathrooms or toilets. So that was all about ventilation. We use various methods for ventilation, such as these kind of fans which you saw earlier. These are the fans which are used for ventilation. These are called axial fans. They are mostly used in car parkings or big commercial spaces, in order to extract the air also, and also provide the fresh air inside the space. So these are the some components which are used in ventilation. And then we come to the concept of air conditioning. So first of all, we need to understand what is air conditioning, because there is some kind of a misunderstanding, or what we can say a myth in our country, that we refer to air conditioning as only cooling of the air or cooling of the atmosphere. But it is not the case. Air conditioning refers to the change in properties, change or altering of properties of air to make them favorable for human comfort. So when there is no air conditioning in the room, when you walk into the room, what do you feel? You feel high temperature, number one. Number two, you feel high humidity. In case of such as these kind of months, which in which there's a lot of rain, there's a lot of humidity as well. So the humidity makes the environment a little uncomfortable for human beings. So we need to remove the heat from the building and also the humidity. So both the conditions we have to meet. So what is air conditioning? Let's go back again. Air conditioning refers to change in properties. So properties of air, we need to change the properties of air to make them favorable. So unlike popular belief, air conditioning does not only mean cooling of air. It means a lot more, which we'll read in the next slide. In India, as it is a relatively hot country, we refer to air conditioning as cooling of air or removal of heat from a room. So in India, it is considered that mostly we have we have summers for around 7 to 8 months. So most of the time we only need cooling in our air conditioners. So that is a myth which is going around in our country, that air conditioning only means cooling, but it means a lot more. What it means, we'll study here. The criteria for air conditioning. So what are the factors which we need to consider and which we need to control in order to say that the room is conditioned? So there are basically 4 factors. First is the temperature, second is the humidity, and third is the air movement, and fourth is the purity of air. So these are the 4 factors which define if a room is conditioned or not. So we need to control these 4 factors in order to define, in order to refer the room as air conditioned. So first we will discuss the temperature. If we have summers, we have a temperature of ambient temperature, outside temperature of around 45 to 46 or 40 degrees, then we need to lower down the temperature inside the room. So if the room temperature is around 30 degrees, we need to lower the temperature to around 24-25 degrees, because optimum temperature for human comfort is around 24 plus minus 2 degrees almost. So we need to lower the temperature to a certain degree in order to meet the criteria, first of all. And if On the other hand, if our outside temperature is very low, it's around 2 degrees, 3 degrees or 4 degrees, then when we need to increase the temperature to the same point, around 24, 23, 25 degrees Celsius. So what we are doing is we are merely changing or regulating the temperature. We are not only lowering down the temperature in some cases. If the ambient temperature is high, then we will lower the temperature inside the room. And if the ambient temperature, ambient meaning the outside temperature, the outside temperature is low, and then we need to increase the temperature in order to make it comfortable for human beings. So that was all about temperature. Next is humidity. So the amount of humidity also plays a great role in defining human comfort. So around the optimum humidity ratio for human comfort is around 50 to 55 degrees Celsius. 50 to 55 percentage. And then if what happens is when there is summers, when there is summers, there is high humidity outside. Then humidity is around 75, 80%, even 85% in some parts of the country. Then we need to lower down the humidity. And if the humidity is lower, which happens in case of cool temperatures, in case of winters, then we need to increase the humidity to around 50 to 55 degrees, 50 to 55%. So we are also merely regulating the amount of humidity or the percentage of humidity in terms of providing a comfort environment. So the humidity ratio, which is optimum for human comfort, is 55%. Then we have the air movement. So air movement, what we understand by air movement is we need to move the air simultaneously or continuously rather, to in order to take away or in order to create a positive air movement cycle, so that there is no bad odor points or hot points which are forming inside the building. You may have noticed in some of the older buildings, then when you walk in, you immediately sense a bad odor or bad smell if the space is not properly ventilated. So we need to ventilate the space. We need to constantly move the air from one point to from inside to the outside and outside to the inside, so that the fresh air continuously keeps moving, and it provides a odor-free and smell-free environment for the human comfort. So next is the purity of air. What we understand by purity of air, if the temperature is very low, but we smell but we get a little bit of bad smell, then the air conditioning then the definition of air conditioning would not be true. The purity of air is also a very important part, because if even though you have a cool environment or you have the humidity under control, but if the air is not pure, if it is full of dust particles, if it is full of bad odor, if it is full of smell, and then it will not be considered as air conditioning. And especially in today's environment, where we are very conscious about the purity of air, we need to perform the purity. We need to perform the air purity procedure, so that the air which we are inhaling or exhaling, which you are inhaling basically, is pure. And because if it's not pure, then it will have long-term negative effects on the human body, and also on comfort. So we need to control these four factors, that is the temperature, the humidity, the air movement, and the purity of air, in order to define a building as an air conditioned building. So these were the four factors. Next is why we need air conditioning. What is the use of air conditioning? Big buildings are impossible to condition with natural means like wind and sun. You may already have heard, you may know from logic that it is not logically possible to condition the building with natural winds and sun, etc. So we need mechanical means to condition the inside of the building. We need fans, we need air conditioning equipment to blow the air inside the building and extract the stale air from the inside. The outside air, next point is the outside air is a higher temperature than inside air. As it is in the case of summers, the outside air is at higher temperature than the inside air. Therefore, in order to maintain comfortable conditions, we need to do three things. Firstly, we need to heat it or cool it or dehumidify it as and when a requirement occurs. So that was the need. We need to form mechanical means for air conditioning. Natural means are not possible for large scale buildings. This is the heart and soul of air conditioning. You may have already seen this cycle. This is known as vapor compression cycle. The all the modern equipments, all the modern air conditioning systems and refrigeration systems are based on this particular cycle. This is known as vapor compression cycle. It is a principle on which all the major air conditioning systems are designed in the modern world. So it comprises of major four processes. You may already have seen these processes. First is compression, next is condensation and expansion, and finally evaporation. So for compression, we use a device which is known as compressor. What it does is increases the temperature and pressure of the refrigerant, and that refrigerant then goes to the condenser. What happens in condenser? If you can see here, you have the outdoor unit from your residential air conditioning system. You may have seen in your homes and in your offices and in your schools or colleges. These are the outdoor units. The compressor supplies the high temperature to the outdoor unit, right? Then what happens is it has a fan and a number of coils inside it, which what they do is they increase the surface area of this coil, which in turn, when the air passes from here to here through the fan, the refrigerant loses its heat and it becomes a little bit colder, not colder, a little bit less warm. Then we have what we do. The refrigerant from the outdoor unit then goes to the expansion valve. So what happened was compressor compressed the refrigerant. It raises the temperature and pressure of the refrigerant. Then the refrigerant goes to the condenser. What happens in condenser? The air removes the heat from the refrigerant and makes the refrigerant a little less hot, and then it goes to the expansion valve. Here is the expansion valve. What happens in expansion valve? The refrigerant is expanded. You may have heard of this as the throttling process. The refrigerant gets expanded, its area is increased rapidly, and then what happens is it loses all the heat and becomes cold and liquid in liquid form. It is due to the phenomena known as evaporative cooling. What happens is the refrigerant which goes into the expansion valve, it passes through a very small hole, very small opening, and then it expands into a very large space and into a very large space and a copper pipe. So what happens is it loses all the heat when it expands, and then it becomes chilled or cooled refrigerant, which then goes to the indoor unit. And what happens in indoor unit? There is chilled liquid blowing running in the pipe in the evaporator coil. What happens is when the air comes across this part, the blower, if you can see the indoor unit and the copper arrangement, the refrigerant flows inside the copper arrangement. There is a blower which is behind it. The blower blows the air from backwards to the front, and then what happens is the cold air comes out from the indoor unit. In turn, the refrigerant which is inside the evaporator coil loses all its heat and becomes evaporated or vapor in the vapor form, and then goes back to the compressor, and the cycle repeats itself. So this is the vapor compression cycle. Just let me know if you have any questions till now, and in the previous topics, or some feedback which you want to give, or something you want to ask. Can you just give me some feedback if you have understood till now? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
So, I assume there are no questions till now in any of the topics, or you would prefer to ask the questions at the end. All right. So moving on, then we have the classification of the HVAC system. The HVAC system can be broadly classified into majorly two components or two types that are chilled water systems and the direct expansion systems. The chilled water system, then again, it can be sub-classified into two types, which are air-cooled and water-cooled. There are more further classifications, but today what we're doing is we are merely overviewing the entire industry and what are the components, what are the concepts which are involved. We are not going into too much detail of the system working and its parameters. We are just merely trying to get an overview of the system so that you can understand the system, how the industry works and what are the components, right? So we have two major classifications of HVAC systems. First is the chilled water system. Next is the direct expansion system. And the chilled water system can be sub-classified into air-cooled and water-cooled. And furthermore, the direct expansion system can also be classified into unitary systems, which are the windows and split ACs, which we see in our homes, and then the centralized or VRV or VRF systems. So, first of all, the chilled water system. What we have is it is one of the oldest and the most popular method for air conditioning and large-scale buildings. For around more than 100 years, the first fully air conditioning building was made by Carrier in around 1900s. It was, I think, the New York Stock Exchange. So we have been in the air conditioning industry is around 100 to 120 years old, and in those 100 years, the most popular and the oldest method of air conditioning has been the chilled water system, and it is also it is very prevalent and very popular nowadays as well. When you go about the big systems, the malls, the apartment complexes, the multi-specialty hospitals, then only and only the chilled water systems are utilized and no other systems. What are its main feature is water is used as a secondary refrigerant. So if you go back to the refrigerant cycle, what was happening here is the refrigerant was being moved and pushed around inside the system, from compressor to condenser and then to expansion valve and finally to the evaporator and then back to the compressor. So what was flowing inside it? It was the refrigerant, or the what we call in common terms is gas. The refrigerant used to flow inside the system. So this is known as the primary refrigerant. So this cycle is still going, but we are transferring the energy of this previous cycle to water, and then we are flowing the water inside the building through a set of through an arrangement or network of pipes. So the water is used as secondary refrigerant as it is cheap and easily available, and also it is non-toxic as compared to modern refrigerant. So the modern refrigerants are considered a little bit toxic, and they're also not very cheap. So in order to run the system in thousands and thousands of meters of pipe, we need a cheaper option, and that is still after 100 years, it's still water is the cheapest secondary refrigerant out there. So water is used as a secondary refrigerant. These are the types of chiller systems. There are basically two types to be broadly classified: water-cooled systems and the air-cooled systems. What happens in water-cooled systems? The water is flown. There is an evaporator. The evaporator is transferring its cold energy to the water, and then the water is supplied to the building, to the AHUs and FCUs. Then the water is supplied to the building through a network of pipes, and then the water is sucked back. There's a continuous cycle going on in the pipes. This is known as the chilled water
Sir,
cycle.
what is AHU and FCU?
AHU stands for the air handling units. It basically is the unit which provide, you can consider the air handling unit as the indoor unit inside your home. If you have a split AC in your home or window AC, the part which blows the air inside the room is known as the air handler. It basically handles the air. It blows the air inside the room, and also it sucks the air. It extracts or it returns the air towards it from the room. That cycle keeps continuously going inside the AHU. AHUs are they are bigger AHUs, and also they are smaller AHUs, which are sometimes considered as FCUs or fan coil units. There are three basic systems. There are three basic components of an AHU. There is a fan, or rather a blower. There is an evaporator or a heat exchanger coil, and there are set of filters and filter arrangements. So these are the basic components of an AHU. It basically provides the air inside the building and transfers the cold energy from the water to the air, and the air is supplied inside the building. That is what happens. So if you can see here, there is a chiller, and chiller has an evaporator coil, which we have seen in the previous slide, and the evaporator is sucking the it is taking the heat from the water which is flowing here, and the water then is transferred to the building and to the AHU, and the air then flows from the AHU. It is not shown here, but the AHU flows the air from the into the building, and then the water gets heated up, and then it goes back to the evaporator, and the cycle keeps continuing. This is known as the chilled water cycle. The similar things happen in. I'm really sorry. The wordings are the subheadings are interchanged. This is the air cooled system, and this is the water cooled system. What we have in the left is the air cooled system. Let me just. This is the air cooled system, and this is the water cooled system. Sorry for the mistake. Right. So what happens in air cooled system? The condenser is cooled by the air. So if we go back to our previous system, there, this is the condenser, and and how the condenser is being cooled down. It is through the air which is passing through the condenser, right? So this is known as an air cooled system. Similar things are happening in the air cooled chiller. Over here, the condenser is being cooled by the ambient or the atmospheric air, and whereas in the water cooled system, the condenser is also being cooled by the water circuit. Similarly, as the evaporator is running a water circuit, and the condenser is also running a water circuit, which is known as condenser water supply and condenser water return. So what happens is condenser is giving its heat to the water, and then the water is going up to the cooling tower. I'll show how a cooling tower looks in just a second. And then what happens in cooling tower, the water cools down, and then it goes back to the condenser, and then the cycle continues. The condenser keeps on giving the heat to the water. The water is going up to the cooling tower, and then it's coming back to the condenser. So this is known as a water cooled chiller arrangement. This is how an actual water cooled chiller looks like. There are set of pipes going up. These are carrying the chilled water from here to the air handling unit to the building. These are water cooled chillers, and these are air cooled chillers. If you can see here, these are the condenser coils. If you can see here, these are the condenser coil, and above that there are the fans which are located. So these are the air cooled chillers. Similar, and then we have the direct expansion. Then we have the direct expansion system. So what happens in direct expansion system? It refers to a system in which the refrigerant is directly expanding inside the area which is to be conditioned. So what was going on in if we go back to the system, the vapor compression cycle, what was happening here? the refrigerant was expanding directly inside the room. The air hand this unit you may have seen. This unit is installed inside the space or inside the room, and then the refrigerant is expanding directly inside this space. So this is known as a direct expansion system. And what was happening in the chilled water system? If you can come here, in the chilled water system, the evaporator was expanding not in the room but in the chilled water pipe. The evaporator was expanding or rather it was taking the heat from the water, and then water was going inside the space. But in a direct expansion system, the refrigerant is directly sent into the indoor. Like in here, if you can see in here, there is a condenser and there is an air handler or the evaporator. The condenser expands or expresses the refrigerant to the indoor unit, and the refrigerant then expands directly into the space. It is not it is not giving its heat to anything else. It is giving its heat directly to the air inside the room. That is why it is known as direct expansion, because the refrigerant is directly expanding inside the area which is to be conditioned. So our our residential air conditioning systems are also technically termed as direct expansion or DX systems. So this is the similar cycle. There is a compressor, then there is a condenser. It is placed outside, which is outdoors. The temperature is removing the heat from the refrigerant, and then the refrigerant is going back to the expansion device where it is expanded. Its area is increased suddenly from after passing it through a small cavity, small opening. So it becomes very cold, and in the liquid form, then it goes into the evaporator where it takes the heat from the room, and then it expands again, or rather it vaporizes or boils again. What happens when you give the heat to a liquid? It vaporizes. Similar things are happening here. The evaporator is taking the heat from the space, and then it is evaporating or converting into vapor form, and then it is going to the compressor through the vapor line. That is the direct expansion system. You may have seen these units. These are the unitary system. Unitary means there is a single indoor unit and a single outdoor unit. If you can see here, there is a single indoor unit and a single outdoor unit over here. And then we have the VRF or VRV systems. So this is the future of air conditioning, or rather future of residential air conditioning system in and around the world. It is being widely used in major applications, both in residential and in commercial setting. So it stands for variable refrigerant flow or variable refrigerant volume. And what happens is it changes or regulates the amount of refrigerant based on the requirements. So imagine you have a room in which there are two people sitting at any given point of time. So the compressor is, for example, it is working at its 50% capacity at the time when there are two people sitting inside the room, right? And then you call another 2 or 3 people inside the room. So now there are a total of 5 people inside the room. So what happens is, in that case, the compressor will sense the added heat load which is there inside the room. Initially there were 2 people. Now there are 5 people. So the compressor or the system will sense the added heat, and then it will change its amount of refrigerant which is going into the evaporator in order to meet the load, because the load has been increased, and then the compressor has to accommodate or correspond to that. And then what happens is it increases the amount of refrigerant which is based on the required load. So if there are 2 people sitting inside, the compressor is running at 50% capacity, for example, let's say, and then when we add another 3 people, so there are no total of 5 people, the compressor will also increase its capacity. Or rather it will increase its efficiency, it will increase its operation, and then it will work on around 80% or maybe 90% or maybe 100% capacity. So what is happening is the compressor is increasing the amount of refrigerant which is going into the space in order to meet the load. Right? This is what is known as VRF or VRV systems. What are the major advantages of VRV systems? Firstly, heating and cooling can be achieved from the same unit as required. And one of the major advantages is that one outdoor unit can be connected to more than one indoor unit, which saves the space and also piping cost. So if you can see in the diagram here, we have a single outdoor and a single, there are shown, and a single set of pipes are running, which is being branching into several units, and these units are also not of the same kind. If you can see, these are different, this is different. So you can connect multiple units from a single outdoor, and these units can be of any kind. These can be either your normal split AC systems, this can be cassette AC systems, these can be ductables. I'll show the entire lineup in the next slide. And the point is, it can one outdoor can be connected to more than one indoors, which is being shown here. And these indoors can also be of any capacity, meaning this can be a 1 ton, this can be 2 ton, this can be 3 ton. There is a lot of flexibility in this in the design, and also it saves the copper pipe, because if you connect these units individually, you will end up getting, and you will end up spending more on copper piping than if you run a single set of pipe through here. So it saves the space, because if for example, suppose you have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 8 units, then you have in normal unitary systems, you'll have to install 8 number of outdoors for that. And 8 number of outdoors will take up more space than one single outdoor. So it saves the space, it saves the piping cost. There is heating cooling can be achieved from the same unit. These are the major advantages of VRV systems, and moreover, it is based on inverter technology. For those of you who do not know inverter technology is a modern technology which has been around 5 to 7 years. What happens there is, as I explained earlier, the compressor changes its speed or capacity based on indoor conditions or indoor load. If you increase the indoor load meaning the number of people, if you increase the number of people, the compressor will automatically increase its speed, and thereby delivering more refrigerant in order to meet the load. If you reduce the load, the compressor will reduce its speed, thereby delivering less refrigerant. So it saves a lot amount of electricity. Mostly around 30-35% electricity is power is saved by using inverter technology as compared to non-inverter technology. These are the kind of outdoor units which are installed in VRV or VRF systems. These are known as top discharge outdoors. On the right, if you see, these are known as top discharge outdoors because the fan is on the top. These are the kind of DX or direct expansion systems. The outdoor is at the fan is at the top. It is delivering hot air from inside to the outside through the upper fans. And then on the left, you can see these are known as side discharge outdoors because they are delivering hot air. These are condensers. These are condensing hot air through the sides, not through the top. So these are two kinds of outdoors which are available, which you can see on the VRF systems. So next time, if you see these kind of outdoors, assume there are VRV or VRF systems. Next, we have the indoor lineup. So these are the common types of indoor units which can be connected to the VRV or VRF systems. These are, first we have the 4-way cassette. If you can see here, there are 1, 2, 3, and 4. There are 4 sides to the cassette. Thereby, it is delivering air on our 4 side. That is why it is known as 4-way cassette. And then we have the four-way compact cassettes. They are not compact because they are smaller in size and they are more fitting in the corporate system. So they are smaller. They are smaller. Then we have two-way cassettes. If you can see here, it is delivering air only on two sides, on one here and one on the opposite side. This is known as two-way cassettes. And then we have one-way cassettes. Similarly, it is delivering air on one side. Then we have our most common high walls, which we consider as split ACs. These are technically known as high walls or wall-mounted units. And then we have floor or ceiling mounted. And then we have in the ceiling and the ducted type. So these are the kinds of indoor units which can be connected, and they can all be connected and by add mix and match. It is not that you need to connect four-way cassettes, then we'll have to connect all the four-way cassettes. You can have one four-way, one two-way, and then one way. Then in the ceiling, there is a lot of flexibility in the designing in VRV or VRF systems. So that was all about the VRF or VRV systems. And then now we'll discuss the roles and responsibilities of an HVAC engineer. So in order to perform well in in the HVAC field, we have to perform a certain task, or we have classified the engineers into some fields in order to make it easier for people to address the problems. So we have three different majorly fields in the HVAC engineering industry. We have the design engineers. Their responsibilities are to design the optimum and efficient system, maintaining a balance between quality and effectiveness. So as a design engineer, you'll have to mostly work on projects which are uh, advanced in nature, because designing is an important and the first step in creating an effective HVAC system inside in the building. So there are a lot of steps which are involved. Firstly, we have to calculate the load or the heat load, which we call it. We have to calculate the heat load calculation in the building, and estimate that what amount of heat will be coming into the building, and what amount of heat will be generated inside the building. We have to accommodate for that, and then we will decide the equipment based on that. Whether we have to install VRV or VRF systems, we have to install chiller systems, or we have to install unitary systems. These considerations have to be made at the design level. And then after the designs are made, the AutoCAD drawings are made, all the calculations are being done. There are working field drawings or shop drawings which are made. These are provided to the site engineer, and the job of the site engineer is to execute the system as per the designs which are made, and to make sure the project is delivered on time and with required quality standards. So the job of the site engineer is to maintain the pace of the project. He has to make sure that the project does not lag behind its schedule, and also he has to incorporate certain amount of manpower. He has to allocate the required resources at the site in order to make sure the work is done properly, and also he also has to make sure that the work is done as per the drawing standards. And in the end, he also has to make sure that the site is handed over on time to the client, so that the operation can begin. And then we have the service engineer. After the work is done, after the site is being handled over to the client, we have the job of the service engineer is to perform the preventive maintenance practices, such as ensuring the system is running properly, getting all the readings, and getting all the parameters checked, so as per design standards and execution standards, so that the system can be run for a longer period of time. And he also has to attend the breakdown events. If there is any breakdown, if there is any downtime, the system has shut down, he has to immediately address to that, so that there is minimum downtime of the equipment. The system must not be down for more than it is required. The system must be up and running as soon as possible. That is the job of the service engineer. So these are the basic. These are the three roles which you must target if you have been, if you want, if you are willing to become an HVAC engineer. And the level of education which you need for this is basically what you have been studying in mechanical engineering. The concepts are the same, but those concepts are being implemented in a very practical manner. Uh, and that is what you have to study. You have to keep in mind the concept which you have studied in college, but there are also certain set of skills which you need in order to become successful. For example, you have been taught AutoCAD in I think around third year and fourth year. So, but the actual application, what you have to design in AutoCAD comes when you come into the design field. So you have to implement the knowledge of AutoCAD which you have achieved in college or anywhere else, and then you have to implement that AutoCAD knowledge into your design, into your project efficiently, so that you do not take more time than you are expected to in order to complete the project, because time is a very important factor in a big project. If you take more time in designing, ultimately it will affect all the further processes in the system. The site engineer will get the drawing very late, the execution will be done very late, and then the handing over will be done very late, uh, uh, which may result in heavy penalties on your company. So you have to be efficient, you have to be on your mark, you have to be on top of your game in order to achieve the level of efficiency and effectiveness in order to survive in this trade, because competition is very high. So, as I said, the competition is very high. You have to prepare for the real world. Uh, Now we know that that around thousands of engineers are graduating every year, and they have around of almost little or no knowledge of how things work in the real industry or real world. So, in order to stand apart from those thousands, you need an edge. So what is that edge? Those edges are skills. You need certain set of skills in order to survive, in order to get yourself uh, in this industry. Because earlier what used to happen, there was a trend that companies used to train their new incoming employees in on their systems. There was a lot of resources and time spent on new incoming candidates to train them on the existing systems. So, but over the course of around 5 to 7 years, which I have seen, the trend has shifted from training aspect to working aspect. So the companies which are now hiring for the engineers, they expect you to have a certain level of knowledge, a certain level of skills which you are willing, which you can use from day one when you arrive at their company or their firm. So there are certain skills which you need to learn beforehand, so that you do not have the disadvantage that you do not know the skills. So you need some added advantage in the form of technical skills or hands-on experience in any trade, and that will go a long way in helping you make you to the top. So you need some technical skills. What are the technical skills? You need a good command on AutoCAD. You need good command on, if you talk about HVAC, you need good command of AutoCAD. You need good command on the heat load calculation. You need good command on VRV systems or VRF systems. You need good command on pipe sizing. So these are the skills which you need beforehand. The companies nowadays do not have a lot of time or resources so they can train you and spend a lot of money on you to train you on those skills. They expect you to train yourself on those skills before you arrive for the interview. So this is the new world which I have seen at least for the last 5 to 7 years. So ultimately it comes down to skills over qualification. Even though you have some certain set of qualifications with you, but even after that, some amount of skills are always needed in order to get into the industry. Of course, I'm not saying they are not training you, they are not training you, or they are not teaching you skills, but a certain amount of skills which are there, which you need to have beforehand, so that you do not act as a burden on your company. And this is the new world which we live in, and you need to adapt to it as soon as you can. So this that is where we come in. Uh, we have a MEP Academy with us, founded by two mechanical engineers in 2016. The JM MEP Academy is a premier training facility in the heart of Lucknow. We have been training more than around 200 students in the last 6-7 years in the field of HVAC and MEP. And we are aimed at training and placement of students who wish to pursue a career in the MEP trade but cannot afford to move to a big city. So what happens is that the tier three cities such as Kanpur, Lucknow, or Barabanki, maybe Unnao, there's a lot of students which have the potential, which want to do things in HVAC, which want to adapt to the HVAC culture, but they are not exposed to the set of education which they need to upskill their portfolio. So ultimately what we have to do, they have to move to a bigger country like Mumbai or Pune or Delhi in order to train them, in order to get the skills in order to survive. But we are giving those similar skills in Lucknow to the students who do not want to move to those cities. So we are having an excellent track record in terms of placement year on year. We are here to help you become job ready and get upgraded to industry standards. So we have trained and successfully helped raised more than 200 students in the last 6-7 years, and we not only help them get the job, but we also help them stay in their job, and after we also help them get upgraded after they are hired by someone. So we are not here only for the 3, 4, 6, 7 weeks which you will take the course. But after you take the course, we are like a big family. We train and we monitor our students even after they leave the academy. We help them in any way. We help them in design. We help them in any of their upcoming projects. We help them in any way we can. And we have trained a lot of students this way. We have also trained many industry professionals we have who have come after some working in 2-3 years in the field, but they do not know the design language. They do not know the design concepts or design parameters. So they come to us, they train with us, they learn the design aspects, and then they become more upgraded. So if you train with us, I'm probably sure you won't be called a fresher anymore, because we provide hands-on and live project training to our students. We provide mock interviews and regular job placement drives. We provide frequent site visits to help understand the equipment and feel the pressure and chaos of the world. Because no training and no classroom work, no theory classes can help you uh, learn. They help you prepare for the chaotic situations which are at work. You have a lot of pressure. The bigger the project, the bigger the pressure which you feel. So you need to understand. You need to get a feel of what the pressure and what the chaos is at the side. So we are here to we do that. We help them. We help the students by training them and helping them understand the concepts and what are the things which you have to perform at the work. So when you arrive on your first day at work, you know at least the basics of what you have to do. You know the concepts, you know the phenomena, you know what is happening. But so it will help you ease the work. It will help you. It will take the pressure off you, and ultimately we aim at mending the gap between you and the real world. So if you're willing to embrace the HVAC industry, I would highly recommend you to upskill your work, upskill your portfolio, because to be honest with you, there is a lot of competition out there, and a lot of people are coming out of the manufacturing machine, which we know as the universities. So a lot of students, a lot of engineers are coming out every year, and so if you want to stand out, you need to upskill yourself. That is the ultimate condition which we are in. So and even after you work, you have to upskill your work every now and then. So there is a endless possibility to upgrade yourself, and and we will help you in any way we can to upskill your work, and provide, and we will help to provide more knowledge to you, right? So let me just ask you again if you have any questions related to these topics which you have studied, or you have any questions related to the job scenarios or job aspects of here. Any questions regarding job scenarios, job opportunities, and scope of HVAC?
Sir, how can we become part of this industry?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
So how can we become a part of this industry?
You can become a part of industry, but just by reading about it. If you are in third year, if you are in fourth year, any year you are, you will, when you come out of the college, you need to have a certain skills. So I would recommend you to start researching about HVAC fields. You need to understand what the concepts are, what the required skills and certifications you need in order to stand apart from those thousands of candidates. You need to understand the various softwares, various concepts, various books, various resources which you need in order to help yourself. So the only way you can become a part of the HVAC industry is by researching about it, and trying to analyze what skills do you have right now, and what skills do you need in order to become successful. So if you have a good command on AutoCAD, then try and try and expand that knowledge, try and increase that knowledge of AutoCAD, and try different things. Take on courses, take on online courses, take on offline courses, and just read about it, and then you will the way will be created on its own. So there is no hard and fast rule for coming into the industry. You just have to you just have to meet the right people, contact the right people, make good network, use social media to your advantage, and just keep yourself out there, put yourself out there, create a good resume, create a good profile, create a good portfolio, and just contact people, talk to people, talk to people who you know are in this field. If you don't know anyone, go on LinkedIn, create a good profile, create contact the people from the HVAC industry, take a feedback, or you can talk to any one of us at any point of time in order to help you, and just research on your own. It will massively expand your knowledge, and no other teacher can teach you the way you can teach yourself. So we can motivate you, we can guide you, but ultimately you have to do the research on your own, right?
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
Sir, any book recommendation you have for HVAC or RIC which we are learning is okay for HVAC?
I would not recommend a book for HVAC. The concepts which you have been studying in your engineering syllabus are more than enough to keep you ready. The only little difference, the only little knowledge you need will be given to you by small journals which are being published every year from various institutions, various societies all over the world. So I would not recommend you books, but only if only if you understand the concepts of refrigeration and air conditioning, which you have studied in your engineering syllabus. It will give you more than enough knowledge which you need in order to introduce yourself into this field. I will not read any books.
Sir, so can you recommend some skills?
Of course, the only the 4 skills which come in mind are the number one, the AutoCAD skill. You need to upskill, you need to get a good command on AutoCAD, because in India at least, all the drawings, all the calculations, everything is done on AutoCAD. Some countries you have also have Revit, you also have InDesign, and all the other concepts. But in India, the AutoCAD is a very important skill. Next, you need to have a good knowledge on your technical skills such as your core skills, which are vapor compression cycle, VRV systems, VRF systems. These are the skills which you need. So you need to learn about these things, so that when you sit in the interview, then the interviewer asks you about the skills, about the concepts. The concepts are in fact the skills. If you know the concepts, then you are a skillful person. So AutoCAD, number one. Number two, the concepts, the principles which you need. Number three, you have the heat load calculation. You need to learn about that. The first and the foremost things which are done in a building is the heat load calculation. There are several methods which we teach in our courses as well, but you can also learn about them online or any other sources you would like. So the heat load calculation is there, and then you have the chilled water sizing system, chilled water pipe sizing, duct sizing systems. These are the skills which you need in order to become an HVAC engineer. And then you can always increase those skills. First, you need to have the basic knowledge of what these are: basic knowledge of heat load calculation, basic knowledge of pipe design, basic knowledge of duct design, and then you can slowly expand your knowledge over the course.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Moinul Haq, this is
Yes,
Dr. Ansari. Thank
yes,
you
sir.
very much for this wonderful talk. I would like to ask on behalf of my students that is there any internship or some certificate course you can recommend for them so that they can take part in that?
Online, sir. Are you talking about the online courses?
Online or offline, any training course, any certificate internship course for my students, for our students, these students.
There are a lot of certification, paid or paid certifications courses, free certification.
Or something, or some courses in which you are also training some students or something like that, maybe.
Well, we have a course on HVAC on in our institute. It's a 2 month course for HVAC engineers.
please
Uh,
describe please describe them and give them some except on that thing to the students.
so we have a 2 month HVAC design and drafting course at our institute. I have been teaching the course for the last 2 years, and we have all the concepts that we have talked about in all the slides. We go into much detail in our courses. We have a full-fledged training facility in Lucknow currently, and we have been trained the students for the last 7 years. The training course, the module is uh, broadly based on the commercial and residential air conditioning system. We do not talk about much detail in residential small systems, but we only talk about the big and commercial HVAC and chilled water and VRF systems, which are prevalent in the commercial field. The training module includes the heat load calculation, number one, the duct design, the pipe design, the commissioning system, the procedure, the entire preventive maintenance procedure. We also have on the job and live project training currently being held for the students who are interested. So we have it's a 3 month course, and it has 2 to 3 live site visits, 2 to 3 presentations, some mock interviews, and all the guidance and you need in order to help you become a beginner HVAC engineer. And after completing the course, you won't be called a fresher then, because you will have the important skills the basic skills which you need in order to work in any of the firms. And we have successfully placed more than 50 to 100 students over the last 2 years in various reputed HVAC companies in India and around the world. Uh, we have placed students in government organizations. We have placed students in Reliance. We have placed students in Uttar Pradesh construction services. We have placed students in Lucknow Metro. We have helped place a lot of students over the years, and we are like a big family, and we always support the students even after they have left the academy. We are, and till now I have also been training and helping and monitoring a lot of students even though they have left the academy. But we have a support group. We have a knowledge group in which we share continuous knowledge throughout the year to every student. And there you need to that the only thing which I would like to tell you that if you want to become an HVAC engineer, the only textbook knowledge and engineering syllabus knowledge won't be enough. I'm telling you this from my own experience because I also was a student not too while ago. But after graduating from university, I understood that the industry is not ready for freshers now. It is they only need people who are skillful right from the first day. So that is what I'd like to advise you to please, if you want to succeed, if you want to have a future in the HVAC industry or any other industry for that matter, you need to have a certain basic skills beforehand. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for you to uh, get placed or get a good assignment or good job in the field.
Okay, Mr. Mohammed, thank you very much for your reply. I would again ask you that is there any way that our students can visit your company? As we came to know that yes, can you provide a way to us so that they can visit? I mean, is there any way?
Well, we have organized a lot of site visits and webinars over the years, and we will be more than welcome to entertain any students who wish to see our work, see how the work is done. We will be more than welcome to invite us to our site and help you understand the concepts.
Okay, so I will be in touch with you regarding this matter. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Azam,
Thank you,
Mr. Azam,
Moinul sir. Thank you,
yeah,
Moinul Haq sir, for such an informative and helpful workshop. Now I would like to call our conveyor, Dr. Muhammad Istefaul Haq Ansari sir, for vote of thanks.
uh, Mr. Moinul Haq, I would like to thank Mr. Moinul Haq that he has given a wonderful and perfect talk for our students. First of all, I would like to thank my director, sir, officiating director, and mechanical department HOD that he has supported this webinar with his approval, and under his guidance we are going through all these steps. Thank you very much, sir. Uh, and we are thankful to Mr. Moinul Haq on behalf of all our mechanical engineering department faculties and on behalf of whole BBD ITM that he has provided us with shared great knowledge with us. We will be hopeful that Mr. Moinul Haq will be coordinating with us, collaborating with us regarding visits, regarding students internship and certificate course. Thank you very much, Mr. Moinul Haq. Thank you very much for your talk. Please,
Feedback link has been posted in the chat box. Participant can fill the form.
yeah. Please find the feedback form in the chat box and fill the feedback form to generate your certificate. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Moinullah. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Manulak sir.